Hello and welcome to part 2 of this Hiwatt 100R Trinity, and you join me with having just removed the board, which wasn't too bad. So we've got the board out now and we're going to have a nosy, and I have found some iffy joints. Let's see if we can find a pointer. So if we look at these joints here, you can see a couple of those don't look particularly great. They're slightly cracked round. You perhaps can't see that on here, and I bet if I go in too close here it's going out of focus. So there's a couple there, but the socket, from what we can see, look at the way these are soldered in. We just try and get round the side of the, sorry. See how they're soldered in those? They don't look dry jointed at all, any of those. So I don't know. But again, you see we're pressing down on this board when we move messing with that tube, and it could well be a dry joint somewhere else that's close by. In fact, quite a few joints are starting to look a bit. Mind you, got to think this amp's 1988. You know, it's not a spring chicken. So to be fair, no one's been in this amp before, and the reason I know that, or no one's had this board out before, and the reason that I know that is because the screws that held down the board, which is here, have this red paint on them, and it had never been broken. It creates a seal, so I imagine it's a warranty seal, so they know if someone's been in it. So those had never been taken out before, and we do know that. But yeah, there's nothing to suggest there's a problem with that socket. In fact, the sockets actually look the best soldered of all, which I expected to find something, but I've not. So I think the best thing to do with this is just have a good solder round and just see what we can find. But there is some one or two joints just beginning to look a bit, but then so with, you know, over 30 years old. Is that right? 88, 98? Yeah, it is. It's 34 years old, so yeah, you'd expect to find a bit of something on there, wouldn't you? So, you know, this really, see how they've got the heater, the filament wires underneath as well, nicely done there. This is a really well made amp, despite it's got a PC board in it. It is a well made amp, it's real quality. Just a shame that they are mounted into the board. But having said that, they're well mounted in. Right, I want to have a wing round with the soldering iron, and I shall return. Right, I'm just going to get this board back in. I've just slotted it in. I've got the screws to tighten up. So we've had a solder around. We found a few joints that looked a bit iffy. None on that jack socket there. Sorry, none on that valve socket, though, I have to say. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe it's the pins loose in the valve seat. Who knows? But anyway, we'll get it put back together, and then we'll check it and see if we've cured the faults. And I think on there is the bias trim pot, and that is one thing we forgot to clean, so we may give that a spray and make sure that works properly. Tested all these tubes, by the way, and they are all they're in brilliant condition. See how old they are. They're all tested really well. They've got loads of life left in them, so there's no issues, unless there is a slight issue with that first V1 when it's under load. But we shall see when we fire it up again. Right, it's all back together. We've cured all the problems with the channel switching, all that's sorted out. But I'm afraid there's one problem that I've found. Now all the controls are turned down on this, everything. Listen to this. And I move that tube. So is that the tube or is that the socket? And it is that tube there. I'm going to be a bit careful because they are red hot. See that? So I struggled to watch the camera because I'm dabbing my finger on that, and I ought to get something to probe it with. Just hang on. There we go. So we need to investigate that tube. I really hope it's not that tube. Bit of a shame if it is, but we shall have to see. Right, we've dropped a tube in there, and it's silent. Now I turned up the volume on the rhythm channel. I don't hear it. Right, let's swap the other one, put the other one back in. Right, we've got the original one back in. Huh. Now it's quiet. That seems a bit iffy as well. Seems okay again now, but when it's fully warmed up and it's been run for a bit, let's leave it on test for another 20 minutes and see what happens, because it had been running quite a while. Right, I've got this amp turned flat out now on the rhythm channel. Have a listen to that. Now then, if this works again, it'll be sort of low. This is a brand new 12X7. Pop him in there, like so. Turn up the volume. He's just warmed up. And you can see that's a lot quieter. This is, I think, is starting again now. Yeah, now that valve's up. So now that valve is up to temperature. Right, we've got an array of tubes here. So we found a tube to go in there because that one was extremely microphonic. That's a JJ ECC83S. So check this one out. This is the original preamp tube here. Take him out, and this is a brand new JJ. And now listen to that. Brand new Marshall ECC83, that's. And well, it looks brand new. I don't know whether it is brand new actually, but it certainly looks brand new. But that's that valve has had it. And there we go. So we've got that one. That sorted that out. So from a few of these valves that we've found, that's pretty quiet now. We've got no microphonics on there, and that's flat out, that channel. It's incredibly quiet. Switch over to the other channel. That's incredibly quiet. We've removed that tube there, and we've cured that problem. Is now cured that we had, but of course now it's going to need rebiasing because it's had a tube added, so we need to check the bias. Right, that is now flat out turned up on the rhythm channel, and you can see how quiet that is now. We've lost all that humming and buzzing and stuff. We had that tube was obviously faulty, which is a real shame, but as that heats up it starts to create problems and it creates noise, intermittent noise. The channel switching problem we had in part 1 I think was just down to dirty socket on the back for the foot switch. That's pretty much sorted, and we've had a good clean round on the pots and everything else, and all the rest of the sockets, so we're about there with this amp now. Right, Friday afternoon alert, which is when I think this amp was made. So I've just been in here measuring the impedance on each side of the output transformer so I can bias this amp, and spotted this. Never been soldered from the factory by the look of that. Well, would you believe it? I missed that. But yes. And actually, as I come to look at some of these, they look very iffy. So yes, look at that, I can't believe it. So there you go. You find these things more often than not. I've seen plenty of videos from various techs on YouTube where they found unsoldered terminals from the factory. Guitarologist, he's got a couple of videos on there on his channel, and yeah, so that happens quite frequently, but that has never been soldered up, or if it has, it didn't work out, did it? So, and that one looks a mite suspect. It's okay, but so yes, spotted that and didn't spot that before, so that's a bit of a slap on the wrist for me for not spotting that from the start. But yeah, so we'll get that soldered up. I've got the impedance on this transformer on each side. I've got on this side, which sorry, back out so you can see, on this side, which I'm calling the left side because it's upside down, that's 29.2, and we've got 27.8 on the other side, so fairly well balanced transformer, pretty good. I've sorted that joint up. I've touched up some of the others which were also a bit Friday afternoon. So the tube that we changed, because remember we had that faulty tube, and that tube was faulty, we swapped it for another one and it cleared up that fault. I've now put one of the slimmer JJs in there because those caps didn't fit on that chunkier Marshall tube very well. So obviously now we're going to bias run this amp up and just check the bias, because we've actually swapped another tube in it. It's always best to check the bias if you're swapping any tubes. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to give it another test. And there we go. That just shows that bias needed checking again. On this side, we've got 17.6 watts. On the other side, we've only got 12.9. Ideally, this amp needs a match quad in it. It's always tricky when you're trying to add a tube into a quad and to try and get it to balance up perfectly. There's only one bias preset part on this amp, so there's not one for each side. there's a considerable amount of difference there. Excuse that noise, it's the rain on the roof. You're talking 4.5 watts there. That's quite an imbalance. So what I'm going to do before I do anything else, I'm going to turn this amp off. I'm going to let it cool down. And although that tube's a little faulty that we had in, I'm just going to pop that tube in and do a bias reading and just see if this balances up again, or whether the other side is so imbalanced that the other tube in that pair is so imbalanced from the pair on the right side, and just see where we are with that before we start swapping and wrapping anymore. Because if I put the original tube back in and it's still down on this side, remember that tube's only got a bit of intermittent noise, it runs okay. So if that tube is still, when I put that tube back in, if this left side is still, you know, way down, then we know that we've got tired tubes all around on this side. The other side's perfect, really. I mean, 17.25 I think is what it should be. 25 times 0.7, because remember we want 70%, 17.5, so that's actually spot on at 17.6. That's near enough for jazz. So the right side is absolutely perfect, the left side is terribly low, so we need to address that. Right, so I've put that tube in that had got that bit of a noise on it, which is now made it a matching set again, matching quad, well, the original quad that was in it. I've now got 14.4 on that side and 15.7 on the other, because of course now we're drawing a little bit more current on one side. That's balanced it out a bit more, and they are reasonably matched now. You're talking you know, a watt between them. So they're reasonably matched. Of course, the other problem that we've got is, and this is also a debate, but for my ears, these amps, they need to be biased at 70%. Anything lower, and they just don't sound right at all. And that's the difference. You know, I am a guitar player. I have been for well over 40 years, and I can tell when amps are biased too cold once they start. And obviously this amp has had its problems, and so we've had some sound issues with the channels, so it's not like I've sat for a period of time and played it and thought, yeah, this needs to be warmed up a little bit. But obviously I've put the meters on it, and it's again, everybody biases amps differently. There's some people have plug-in things that they use to check the current. Well, they're okay. I just prefer to test across. I test the volts drop across each side of the transformer. I test the impedance of the transformer, and then calculate it with the HT voltage to get the dissipation on the tubes. And this is the same thing. This is the old thing again. You know, oh, I'll just stick some new tubes in it. You can't do that. You stick a set of tubes in an amp, or you think, well, I'll just stick one tube in there. I've stuck that tube in there, and obviously I've put that tube in because we needed to eliminate that fault. Some people may have put that tube in, oh, I've cured that fault now, but you've just cured a fault and created another one, because now you've got massive instability now between those. You know, 12 watts and 17 watts that's a lot. That's not balanced. So assuming that tube would have been okay, and not got that intermittent noise on it, although the amp was biased around 14-15 watts, because the tubes are pretty well matched, we can just up the bias trim pot and get them up to 17.5. So I put another JJ in, which were from a pair that was even worse. So the reason I took that Marshall tube out that we originally had was because it was, although the cap went on it, it was a little bit of a fatter bottle. So let's see what we've got now with the Marshall one. And we've got we just turn that down so we're not getting .2 and 2.06. So that's the volts drop across the primaries of the center tap and the plate on this side, and on the other side the plate and from the center tap. So that's our readings there. And there we go. What a difference a tube makes. So putting that tube in now, I've got 17.9 on this side and 17.6 on that side. So we've put one tube in there, and the other three are original. So we put a JJ in there, and the thing is, the JJ is not a bad tube. It's just not matched to these other three. So this is why you pay for matched tubes. Someone sits and plugs them into a machine and matches them up and puts them and pairs them up or quads them up, and that's why you pay extra money for them, because it's time consuming to do that. So we've put two JJs in there, and we've had it as low as 12 point something on this side and 14 odd on there, which also made it imbalanced. But we had one tube in there, and that's brought the bias up on both sides to 17.6 watts. So that tube seems pretty well matched for this quad. So 17.9 is just a touch on the high side, but it's acceptable. It's 0.4 over, and we're 0.1 over on the other side. So that is exceedingly well matched, Mr. Kipling. So I've got this Hiwatt all put back together, so let's have a listen. So there we have it, the Hiwatt lead 100R with the Trinity logo on there, and that's very rare to see that Trinity logo on these. So that's all done and dusted. So thanks for watching and watching me repair these amplifiers and waffle on about them, and you all take care, and I'll see you soon in a future video. Bye bye for now.